Good morning, Illini. Welcome back to another Healthy Illini podcast. I'm your host, Matt Schrock, and I hope you're having a great day wherever and whenever you are listening to this. Hope the weather's nice whenever this happens to be. But we're excited to bring a topic in today. I've got a number of guests, so we're going to jump right into it, so I have plenty of time. But we're talking about hearing today. My guests today are all a part of the Audiology program here at the University of Illinois, and I'm excited to talk to them because this is a topic that I have a passing knowledge of, and so it's always exciting for me to learn about things and to get some more information and to hear perspectives. But let me introduce the guests before we start. First off, we have Dr. Sadie Braun. She is a clinical assistant professor here in Audiology with the Department of Speech and Hearing Sciences. Dr. Braun, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Is it okay if I call you Sadie?
Yeah,
We'll
please.
go forward with that. And then with her, we have three of the doctorate students here. They're all in the Doctor of Audiology program. They're all rising third years. I believe you've all completed your second year just this past academic year. First up, we have Kaylee Graves. Kaylee, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And Yadira Alonso Espinoza. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And our third is Bisma Chowdhury. Bisma, thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you.
So we're going to get your perspectives as students, but also life experience here, because I'm really intrigued by your backgrounds. I don't often go into a lot of background with our guests because we want to get to the topic, and we try and keep these fairly short. But you all have some very interesting backgrounds. So I want to kind of take a moment, if you could quickly share a little bit about that, but just kind of talk about what brought you into the world of audiology and kind of how you ended up here at the University of Illinois doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I started out in broadcast journalism, so I actually wanted to be an anchor on the nightly news. Switched tracks pretty quickly when I realized that I didn't really have what it took for that. But I discovered audiology by taking a speech and hearing science course in undergrad here at the U of I. I kind of fell in love with it right away. I love that it combined a helping profession with the anatomy and physiology that I really liked, and not a lot of the chemistry and physics that I really didn't like.
That's an important distinction to learn very quickly.
Yes.
But you've also you practiced for a number of years before starting also as a professor, correct?
Yes, I've been here for about 3 years at the U of I, and before that I was at a practice in Kankakee, Illinois, for about 10 years at a hospital-based practice.
Thank you. All right, Kaylee, I'm going to put you on the spot next. Kind of give me a little bit of your background.
Sure. So I actually am someone that was diagnosed with a hearing loss when I was 18 months old. I've worn hearing aids all of my life. I, interestingly enough, decided to get my bachelor's in psychology and had absolutely nothing to do with hearing until now. But then I wound up working in hearing research for the past 10 years and just absolutely fell in love with it and decided to go back and get my doctorate in audiology. I am just obviously very interested in the ear and how it works because I don't even know how my own ears work. So that's kind of what brought me here. My mom also was a very strong supporter of that. She was very much, be an advocate for yourself. Talking about your own hearing, it can help someone else.
I'm Bisma, in case you guys forgot. So I originally went to school in Houston, and I was doing my bachelor's. I decided to do communication sciences and disorders. With that, I intended to do speech pathology, actually. You can kind of go both ways. You can either go to audiology for grad school or speech path. And I chose that route at the beginning, and I took my first audiology class, actually. And my professor put out a little email, which she was telling us that there was a job opening at Houston Methodist Hospital for newborn hearing screening. So I was like, okay, I kind of need a job. So I decided to interview for that. And that's how I initially started learning more about kind of the hearing aspect of communication sciences and disorders. And then with her class, I decided, I actually kind of like this a little bit more than speech pathology. So that's how I applied to U of I and ended up here. But yeah, and then Yadira.
Yeah, so after I graduated from undergrad in Chicago, I decided to take a gap year because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. And that gap year turned out to be an internship in Houston, Texas with foster care children. And a lot of the work that we did was take the kids to their medical appointments, such as speech therapy or other type of medical appointments. And I learned about like hearing screening and just hearing health overall with them. and I was very intrigued by it. So I started doing my research. I remember I moved to Houston in January of 2020, and then COVID started in March. So that just went completely different than what I was expecting to be my life in Houston. But I spent that time just researching about professions in hearing, but also learn about speech pathology, and I didn't really know what the difference was. So that's what I did during COVID. I just interviewed speech pathologists and audiologists, and I was convinced to go into audiology without even having a background in communication science disorders, and here I am now at the U of I.
You and I definitely do not have the CSG background. We decided to go off the beaten path.
And you find that with a lot. I find with a lot of guests on a lot of the topics we do that there's a uniqueness to everybody's path to how they get there, and I find that really fascinating, to be honest. But Yadira, you mentioned that you didn't know the difference between speech pathology and audiology, and that kind of ties to the next thing I want to talk about is that education is so important in this topic. In all your prep work, you all talked about awareness and education, and I think that's really where I want to jump off at, because I think everybody has had a speech or has had a hearing test at some point. If you came through school in America, you had a hearing test. All I know about the hearing test is I had to listen for a beep and raise my hand. That's the extent of it. I don't know what it what it showed or what was good or what was bad. It was just kind of like, you raise your hand. So with that, let's just start with we're talking about hearing and ear health and things like that. Education, you were talking in your prep, you're talking about loud noises and about volumes. That's kind of the recurring theme. Tell me a little bit about why that's important to ear health, how it affects ear health. What should listeners know when we're talking about trying to maintain your hearing when it comes to noises and volume?
Yeah, so I'm assuming most who are listening to this podcast are college students. So focusing on that college age range, really it's about knowing that what you're listening to now can damage your hearing in the future. Even if you're not noticing the effects of it now, it can have an effect down the road. And we don't oftentimes think being at a loud concert or listening to our phone music from our phone at a loud volume will have an effect, but it definitely can. And the more you're exposed over time, the more of an effect it can have in the future.
And I would also add on to that people don't honestly realize how loud that they're listening to things, especially if they're playing music through their AirPods or even this podcast. We have actually taken part in a class that used a sound dummy called Kimar. He's a great guy. And we stopped people on the sidewalk and had them put their AirPods in the ears of this sound dummy, and we were able to kind of do some quick math and found out that most people are listening to things way louder than they need to be, and the louder that you listen to things for the longer period of time that you listen to things is a quick way to really damage your hearing. So we kind of want to keep the volume on your phones to at least 50% or less of what the actual total volume is, and then that way you can kind of assume that you're at a safe level of listening. Also, I am the president of the U of I chapters of the Student Academy of Audiology, so we do a lot of education and hearing healthcare promotion. We also do hearing screening events. We just had one in the spring semester where we had people come in, we got to do the quick hearing test with the beeps, and at the end of that, we were able to tell the students that came in to participate, hey, this is what we were testing for. You heard these beeps, your hearing is normal. Or you didn't hear these beeps, you should go get a full hearing test at our in-house audiology clinic. So we do a lot to kind of promote that, and we're participating in a lot of different outreach activities. So
I'd add on to that, speaking of students getting their hearing screened and tested, we do free hearing screenings for any students or faculty in our clinic on campus. So that's a good way to find out if you might have a problem. And then also for testing, we do 50% off for testing for students.
And you're talking about listening levels, and you're right. A lot of our listeners are college students, and college students, walk the quad any part of the day. There's earbuds, headphones, everybody, and I'm guilty of that myself. And I was humbled a little bit in the prep work because you all talked about what an appropriate volume is, and I am guilty of not being someone who listens at an appropriate volume. But would you share what is an appropriate volume, and why is that an appropriate volume when you're listening to music, especially through like headphones?
I think in terms of when we talk about appropriate volume, there's a lot of technology such as like our phones and even our AirPods or even watches that tell you like that's exceeding the volume like threshold. You should probably lower it. I think that's a really good start for people that may not be aware of what's too loud or what can cause damage to my hearing. So I think that's a really good start for people that do have those AirPods. I'm even guilty of that, but now being in this field, I'm now more aware and I know what the consequences could be for that. But I think that would be a really good starting step for people. But even anything like below, like, you know, the orange line that you start to get on your phones would be a really good place to start if you're in the red, especially in the red.
I agree with you, Dira. So I go to the ARC a lot, and I was actually part of the powerlifting team this last semester. And the powerlifters listen to excruciatingly loud music. I was guilty of it as well. And a lot of the students, they'll learn that I'm in audiology, and they'll be like, oh, but like my hearing is still really good. And that kind of goes back to what Dr. Braun was saying earlier, where we're young, so we think that our hearing is going to be fine tomorrow and the day after. But I've told some of the colleagues or like some of the other powerlifters that it will catch up to you eventually. I'm not saying that you will go completely deaf, but there are a little bit of consequences as you get older. And then it also goes into a lot of like you may start noticing some tinnitus, some ringing in your ears. These are a lot of side effects of I guess early onset hearing loss. And tinnitus there's no cure for that. Sometimes you get it from other things, but hearing loss is another cause of that too. And like what Yadira was saying, if you start seeing that notification on your Apple Watch or your iPhone, just turn it down a little bit. And then slowly I think you may realize what I used to listen to really, really loud music. I know they can all agree. And as soon as I started being more aware of it, I turned the volume down just a little bit. And then now I've noticed that I can't listen to music that was as loud as before because I've kind of been training myself. So that might be a good start if you're a little concerned about the volume you're listening.
I think it was, Sadie, I think you had the analogy for how damage to the ear over time with the carpet. Would you share a little bit about that? Because I think that fits perfectly into what Bisma just talked about.
Sure, yeah. So your ear, your inner ear is called the cochlea. It has little tiny hair cells in it that bend when sound comes in. And certain hair cells bend for certain frequencies. So what happens is when sounds come in, certain hair cells are being bent with high-pitched sounds or with low-pitched sounds, and over time it's kind of like a doormat. When you have a carpet in your house, right, and let's say you walk in the front door and you don't take your shoes off, over time that carpet in the very front of your house is going to get worn down quicker. And that's why we tend to see hearing loss from noise be in the high frequency range, because those high frequencies actually are transduced through the beginning of the cochlea, right at the entrance, so right at that front door. And so that's why high frequency hearing loss is caused by noise exposure.
And you've all talked about a little bit about the signs of you're starting to have some hearing issues, the tinnitus, the dullness, not hearing the higher frequencies. I'm guilty of it too, Yadira, where like it says warning, the volume down. I'm like, I know, and I turn it back up. It's like I know what I'm doing, even though it's just not wise. And so I'm guilty of that myself. But sometimes I find myself having to turn things up because I'm not hearing it as well as I used to, or I'm having trouble in conversations, distinguishing voices or distinguishing sounds in conversations I didn't used to have. And so these are kind of the signs that I'm seeing in my own life, that I'm like, yeah, because I love music. I'm all about music. Like it was a running joke in my family that my dad and myself, we would get a new car and the speakers would last maybe a couple months because we just liked music. But that's not good. But as you all said, the damage is irreversible. you can't go back and fix it. So I can't go back and change my past habits. I can't go back and change what I did as I was growing up in the past week, whatever. But going forward, I can make changes going from here. So what are some proactive measures? What's some advice on if somebody's listening going, yeah, I'm guilty of that, I need to fix some things. What are the steps that need to be taken just to start to mitigate and preserve ear health going forward?
I would recommend, getting a hearing test at once a year, if not every 2 years. If you start to notice that you're hearing things, but you're not quite understanding it, you don't have the clarity, that's where you start to lose clarity is in those higher pitches. So if you're hearing someone talk, like for me, for instance, but you're not fully understanding what I'm saying, that's a good indication that maybe I should get my hearing checked out. I would suggest, getting a hearing test, seeing what your hearing thresholds are across the different pitches that we test, as well as how soft of a sound that they're able to hear, and then just kind of monitoring from there. Most people that I've tested for the first time have absolutely no idea that they have a hearing loss, and they're quite frankly shocked. A lot of people, I would say, are possibly candidates for hearing aids as well, or some sort of amplification that gives them that clarity back so that they're able to engage more socially in conversation and actually understand people a little bit better than what they had before. Hearing aids don't fix it. It's not, going to make your hearing completely normal again, but it can give you back some of that speech clarity and understanding. But I would definitely start with hearing tests. That's the biggest thing. It's, an hour of your day, and it's only going to help you for the rest of your life.
I'll add on to that. Something really easy that college students can do is go to the store, buy a pair of reusable or disposable foam earplugs. Just have those in your purse or in your pocket or in your backpack, because you never know when you're going to be in that loud environment, and there's no shame in just popping some earplugs in your ears, because that could save you down the road from having to wear hearing aids.
Yep. And I was going to add on and say, just be mindful of or how many situations that you're in that have that loud noise. Think about how many football games or basketball games you're going to. We all like to go to our Illini sporting events. And then also think about how often you're going to loud bars, or we have a lot of bars just on Green Street. So how many times are you in, those bars, and are they playing very loud music? I've had a few friends that go to bars, and they'll send me a little picture of their Apple Watch that'll say, oh my God, you're exposed to so much loud music. And they'll send me a picture, and I'm like, yeah, maybe you should distance yourself from the speaker. That could be a good starting point. There are always speakers. Try to find a place that you're maybe in the middle of the speakers or on the side. And then like Dr. Braun said, if you have those earplugs or those foam earphones in your pocket, you can put those in.
There's also absolutely no shame in taking a listening break. If you're in a loud environment like that, step outside for maybe 20 minutes, just get some fresh air, let your ears kind of recover a little bit, and then go back inside. I have noticed that, if I've gone to Legends or something and it's loud, even with hearing aids myself, like I will leave after a couple of hours and I'll just feel such intense relief of not having myself being like bombarded with loud noises. So yeah, definitely like go outside, take a break, and that goes for sporting events too. Basically anywhere that's loud, just give yourself a break from listening.
I agree. I think hearing protection is a big one. That's something that it's often not very talked about. Like hearing protection is very important and will help in the long run. Obviously, when you're older and there's nothing you could do, you can't go back in time. There is things that you could do in the present, such as wearing hearing protection, not just to like fun events, but also at work, depending on where you work at. That's something that I always like notice in my family. My family, we're all different people doing different things. Like my sister's always like going to concerts, so I tell her, but then we have my family, like they work in construction sites or like even restaurants and factories, and sometimes they don't have those hearing conservation programs there, and they're often not educated about hearing protection, and so that's something that comes in for me handy to teach them about and just help them protect their hearing in the long run.
Y'all mentioned advocacy and for yourself, because the important thing to remember is that it's your hearing. It's not anybody else's hearing, and you're taking care of your health and your wellness. And so, sometimes there's stigma with like even earplugs and things like that. But really, it's about educating. This is how you're helping yourself. This is how you're you're taking care of your own hearing. This is, this is important. And really with development of like noise canceling headphones and things like that, there's a lot of ways to protect yourself that really a lot of that stigma has kind of gone by the wayside in some ways. There's still some there, but education is what really fights against that. So my next question is, somebody's listening and they're like, you know what, these are all good things, I want to know more. How do they get in contact with you? Like, how do they get scheduled for one of your clinics? How do they find out about your events? Where are you located if they go to the clinic? Just if you would share some of the resources that you've mentioned already for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the easiest way to get in touch with us is through our clinic email address, which is shsclinic@illinois.edu. Somebody will get back to you right away from that. You can also call us. Our clinic is at 217-333-2205, and we're there 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday.
And we will have those resources in the bio, as always. If you're listening, if there's anything that's mentioned, we stick it in the bio of the episode, so it's real easy to find and click on. But as far as where are you located on campus, if somebody wants to come to one of your screenings, is there a set location, or do you move, or how would they find you?
So our audiology clinic is located kind of out by Research Park, kind of a couple blocks away from the football stadium. It's on Oak Street. It's next to Chesterbrook Academy. I think it's a preschool daycare. It's actually in that same building. So that is where you would go for a full-fledged hearing test or any other hearing concerns that you have. As far as SAA hearing screening events, we try to promote those pretty heavily on our social media, on our Instagram and Facebook accounts that Yadira is in charge of. And those screening events are usually held in the basement of the SHS building, which is on 6th and Daniels. Yep.
What is that Instagram, Yadira? Let's go ahead and let's give a shout out to your handle here. What is that?
Go follow SAA_UIUC.
SAA_UIUC.
We try to be active on there right now. It's summer, but we try to repost things from the Student Academy of Audiology, the national organization, on tips about protecting your hearing. What are some ways to advocate for yourself? So go follow our page to get more tips and advice on hearing health. And our clinic is located at 2001 South Oak Street, Suite B. I have memorized it because I go there all the time.
And another thing about the Instagram page, sometimes when we have those hearing screenings that are outside of the clinic, we advertise those there too. So if you're not wanting to go to the clinic, we advertise when we have on our SAA page. So
I'd also like to point out that for those of you listening who haven't decided what your potential career might be, audiology is awesome, and it's kind of a hidden field, I'd say. It's not really advertised much out there, but if you see yourself wanting to help people and make a real difference in their lives, and you maybe also like some of those anatomy and physiology type sciences, come talk to us. You can call the clinic, tell them you want to be connected with me or with an audiology student to just talk more about the profession of audiology.
It's something we say a lot around here, that medicine's not going anywhere. And so if you're looking for like job opportunities and advancement opportunities, we're always going to need medicine, and hearing specialists, audiology, that's part of that too. And so it's something to consider, because it is a field that, like I said myself, I've always been around. I've taken tests, but I didn't know much about. And so it was really interesting to me to do the prep work on this, just to kind of learn a lot of your backgrounds and perspectives on a lot of this. But I appreciate you all coming today and sharing this. I know this was really quick, and it's just barely the tip of the iceberg of what audiology is and ear health and things like that. But I do appreciate you coming and at least opening the conversation and taking the time to spend it with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We talk about health and wellness here constantly on Healthy Illini. That's what we're about. And ear health is one of those. And it's about your hearing. And as you heard today, your hearing, if there is damage, it's irreversible. And so it's important to take care of your hearing. It's important to be proactive in maintaining your health there. And so if you have questions about that, if you've heard something and you're not sure what the best path is, you want to get tested, you just want to know more information, please reach out to the resources in the bio. Reach out to us here at Healthy Illini. We would love to put you in contact with people that are more educated than I am, that can give you the answers and help you make a plan to have the best hearing you can have for as long as you have it. But thank you for joining us today. You're on a personal journey no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we're here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini. We talk about health and wellness here constantly on Healthy Illini. That's what we're about. And ear health is one of those. And it's about your hearing. And as you heard today, your hearing, if there is damage, it's irreversible. And so it's important to take care of your hearing. It's important to be proactive in maintaining your health there. And so if you have questions about that, if you've heard something and you're not sure what the best path is, you want to get tested, you just want to know more information, please reach out to the resources in the bio. Reach out to us here at Healthy Illini. We would love to put you in contact with people that are more educated than I am that can give you the answers and help you make a plan to have the best hearing you can have for as long as you have it. But thank you for joining us today. You're on a personal journey no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we're here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.